This is the first chapter of a memoir in progress. It's called The Plunge, and I called this genre immersion memoir because I'm writing it as it's happening. Okay. On my 61st birthday, the Skype calls started early. That man at the swimming pool I told you about, he disappeared, so he can't be real. I must have conjured him up. My girlfriend's face mirrored the confusion in my voice. I doubt that, she said. If anyone's a realist, it's you. I'm just surprised to find you this interested in someone. You said that part of your life was over. It had been over. With 4 decades of the he-she thing behind me and no luck in attracting a mutually interested partner, I'd walked away from the emotional expense of it in my mid-50s. I'd never been in love, never met anyone who triggered that depth of feeling, and while I remained curious as to what all the fuss was about, there were now other things I wanted to do. I was happy with my simple, quiet life. My phantom friend and I had gotten used to seeing each other every Friday afternoon. For the rest of the week, he made it to the pool when he could, but I had a more regular schedule, one he wasn't aware of. We sought each other out. He waved to me when I arrived. I admired his powerful back planking through the water as he finished his hour of laps, and together we moved into the hot tub. Our last talk in late November had been flirty, intimate, and intentional. He'd asked probing questions about my life, the jets pushing us closer together, the smiles lasting longer. As I rose to leave the sweltering water, he started to say something, hesitated, and looked down. I turned back from the child's steps when he said, "Will I see you next week?" Of course, my heart flooded with anticipation. Next week came, bringing a December that tore apart established patterns. We didn't see each other for the entire month. I looked for him, waited for him, but he wasn't there. The pool felt cold and barren, as devoid of life as the winter trees outside the windows that ran along the north side of the pool. At the end of December, I walked onto the pool deck and noticed his gray buzz cut out of the corner of my eye. He was in the hot tub, his expression rigid and tight. My stomach clenched. I acted as if I hadn't seen him and waded through the children's area to deeper reaches of the pool. Slipping under, I stayed as long as my breath would allow, the water a membrane to keep my unruly emotions at bay. When I surfaced, he was standing at the far end of the pool, both hands on hips. I took in the V of his torso, swimmer's shoulders that matched mine, black knee-length diving pants. We were both rounder with age, but still seal-sleek, healthy. I focused my eyes on his feet and breaststroked towards him. When I was 10 feet away, he jumped in with his water shoes still on. "Where have you been?" he said. His strong, square face had softened, but his eyes had not. "Here, I've been here, a lot. Where have you been? You didn't go out of town?" "No. Did you?" "No." And then silence. Who were we to be asking these questions? Well, I managed to hide the anxiety his absence had caused. He seemed to care little about the transparency of his own feelings. He broke the tension by asking me how my holidays were. Weird, like usual, no family, routines all messed up. I went to a Christmas dinner at a friend's place, and that was good. I turned 61. It was fairly meaningless. And yours? His eyes softened as he spoke of family get-togethers, but the only words I heard were, "our house." I'm not sure if I frowned, but again, silence. He fanned the water between us as if shallow ripples might somehow erase those words and take us back to the world we'd made where I didn't ask and he didn't tell. He talked about his grown children, and even then I couldn't broach the subject of where they'd come from. We were both scuba divers, with hours logged in wilder waters. Perhaps his urchins were sea urchins, harvested from the ocean floor. I finally said, "I've been thinking about you and hoping you were available." His hands stopped moving and he focused his gaze on mine. "And I've been thinking the same thing." He swallowed hard and said, "I'm married. I'm so sorry. I know I should have said something before, but I just didn't know how. God, I'm really sorry." Like being pulled under by a wave I hadn't seen coming, I gasped for air. Could he see the ferocity of my heartbeat through the thin fabric of my swimsuit? My eyebrows shot up and I shook my head slightly. I tried to settle my breathing by closing my eyes and dunking my head back in the water. Rivulets cascaded down my temples and flowed down my neck. When I opened my eyes, he was still there with that face I could look at forever. How could I not have known? While he didn't wear a wedding ring, he looked cared for as only a married man could. There was a large body of water behind me, and the impulse to blurt out something reactive and swim away pulled at me like a strong current. Engulfed by this complexity, I became immobilized. Unlike previous disappointments with single men who knew as little about love as I did, this time it was the circumstances that were an obstacle, not the man himself. But how could I separate those two? We'd known each other only a few months. Friendliness mutated to interest like a spring ice melt flowing downhill, effortless and natural. We talked about everything except this, but I knew if I left now I'd miss out on something I needed to learn, someone I needed to be. Looking crestfallen, he said something more unexpected than before. I love my wife, but we haven't had relations in over 8 years. We've been together a long time. You haven't had sex in 8 years? Why not call it what it was? So you're like, what, roommates? How could he live like that? More like best friends. In other ways, we're still happy, but this hasn't been easy. I had no direct experience of long-term relationships and what people were willing to compromise for the sake of domestic contentment, interwoven lives with children, grandchildren, property, and investments. Was that what his endless laps were about, swimming away the frustration so he could stay in the relationship? With nothing left to lose, I said, well, I think you need to go home and tell that wife of yours that you met someone at the pool who thinks you're really hot and she needs to step up her game. His laughter provided a lifesaver to keep the conversation afloat. That part of our lives is over, so that will never happen. He ducked down into the water, all but his eyes submerged, rose up and said, I think you're really hot too. You do? This man had never seen me in anything but my bathing suit and clean scrubbed face, and he thought I was hot at 61 years old. Couldn't you tell? You just have a really nice way about you. His wide smile was full of perfect teeth, pearls. Maybe our timing is just off. Our timing? How old did you say you were? He smiled sheepishly and said, 65. My God, if not now, then when? But he was married, and we were having a very dangerous conversation, one we both seemed willing to accept responsibility for. This is really confusing, he said. I've never stepped out. I've never even been tempted until now, but I really like you and have to face that. I honestly have no idea what to do. And I've never been with a married man. Actually, I haven't been with anyone at all for the last 5 years. Shock registered on his face. I wasn't interested until now. We stared at each other, the water between us electric and choppy. Whatever happened next would have far-reaching implications. I considered his depth of experience with things I knew so little about. The next move seemed to be mine. Here's what we'll do. I kept my voice low and floated to the side of the pool. We were now only a couple of feet apart. You should take me to lunch. Yes, I'd love to. Okay, today's Wednesday. I come to the pool at 2 p.m. If you're here Friday, you can ask me then. That seems safe. For now, he said. Buoyed by a solid plan, his eyes danced. We'd plunged into the depths, but 2 days would give us time to change our minds. Thursday was my day of deliberation. I called a friend who'd been in a relationship with a married man for years. A couple our age, he had valid reasons for not leaving his marriage, and she'd accepted that. We're deeply in love and sexually monogamous, she said. We chose each other and it sustains us. And then, as if reading my thoughts, she added, for once, I decided to settle on a less than perfect situation rather than on a less than perfect lover. They'd met in that field beyond all ideas of right and wrong and forged a lasting connection. On Friday, I looked through the sweeping wall of glass at the entry to the pool. He he hadn't changed his mind. I powered through my 30-minute workout, out swimming the emotional undertow, still threatening, and joined him in the hot tub. Tomorrow would be the last day of 2016. He told me his New Year plans, their plans. He didn't mention lunch. Should I? To break the small talk, I finally said, "What happened between us a couple of days ago left me feeling pretty vulnerable." He stood and squared his shoulders to me. "I get that. Our circumstances are different, but it'll be okay. Let's go to lunch on Monday. I'll call you then and we'll figure it out." I wiped liquid beads from my face and nodded. "Good," he said, "let's get out of here." In the lobby, we saw each other for the first time dry and clothed. He punched my number into his phone, opened his arms, clasped me tightly, and wished me a Happy New Year. "And to you," I said as he walked away. I stumbled toward the raw, wintry air blowing in through the entry, more naked than I'd ever been in the pool. Okay, so creative process. I know this was like 5 minutes about that and then 5 minutes about something else, but I really just wanted to write about the creative process and really about my attitude towards it rather than the mechanics of it. We hear a lot about the mechanics, putting things together and the physical effort involved, the mental effort involved. But for me, it's been more of a switch in attitude. So that's what I'm going to talk about here instead of that other POV. The attitude that pushes me forward is based primarily on two words: determined acceptance. The first word, determined, is active. The second, acceptance, is passive. But when you put them together, they go a long way in describing the 5 repeating patterns that I try to adhere to as a writer and basically just as a person. And luckily for me, those two things are merging more and more every day. Number 1, saying yes as often as possible. 2, honoring and following my intuition. Number 3, facing fear and moving through it. 4, never waiting until I'm in the right mood to write or to do my practice. And number 5, finding who I need when I need them. So determined acceptance allows me to open to saying yes in a trusting, non-constricted mindset. It also allows me to follow through with my intuition, and it also speaks to never waiting until I'm in the mood to write or to do my practice, which is, by the way, Tibetan Buddhism, the granddaddy of all things weird and mystical in this world. So determined acceptance is a kind of a mundane world twist on what Buddhism might be, what in Buddhism might be termed fervent faith and devotion, and requires just as much diligence to attain that determined acceptance as to maintain it. Both of these go beyond what one believes and tap directly into what is more of a faith-based way of knowing things. So there are two different ways of seeing the world. Belief can be based on the externals of societal conditioning, cultural conditioning, or simply stories that have handed down to you from family. Faith and determined acceptance are more from personal, experiential knowingness. Belief speaks of knowledge, faith speaks of wisdom. And when it comes to intention and where we place our emphasis, as writers and as people, I believe wisdom will always trump knowledge. So with the attitude geared towards wisdom, my process has really been just to sit down and do it. The act of writing begets the mood to write, just as sitting on my meditation cushion begets, and opening my text begets the mood to practice. So it is that determined acceptance of saying, this is who I am, this is what I do. This attitude also helps deflect emotional mood swings so many of us writers experience, and reminds me of something I read years ago. I treat my emotions like my children. I honor and respect them, but I don't let them take over the house. Exactly right. So my direct experience tells me that stability and reliability are worthwhile virtues for any creative endeavor, as for life itself. Rather than give in to emotional disruptions, I try to use that energy to nurture my own noble qualities, my own genuineness, and to write from that place. It's important to have confidence in our abilities, whatever it takes to gain that confidence. Another use of determined acceptance. As I grow older, I find the act of narrowing and deepening my life to be essential. At this point, I'm really focused on writing creative nonfiction and following this very particular and very peculiar path of spiritual teachings. The world spews out distractions all the time, but they don't really serve my purpose. I try to be quite ruthless in my pursuits at this point, which also as an American means no TV and no news. 20 years left, and 20 good years left, and the U.S. government gets none of it. Okay, so it doesn't mean I don't leave time for people that are important to me, because I definitely do that. So this brings me to the last item on the list, which is finding people I need when I need them. In the fall of 2014, after going through TWS workshop in 2013, I went online with the express purpose of meeting someone to fill a gap in my life that I really felt was vacant. I'd started working on my first memoir, the one called Infallible. I'm currently in rewrites on it. And I realized how spirituality had shaped my writing. And I'd met fantastic people in the writing community here, and I had my group of spiritual friends, but there was no connection. I was the connection. So I Googled writing as a spiritual practice, and up popped a website for a man named Mark Matusik. After becoming Andy Warhol's senior editor at Interview magazine in the 80s, he contracted HIV. He thought he would die, because that's what was happening then. And so he quit his job and ran off to Asia for 10 years, doing a Dharma dig, basically meeting, the strangest people he could and finding out what he could find. He got back to New York City 10 years later and realized he wasn't going to die. There were now drugs available, and so he started writing. His first memoir was called Sex, Death, and Enlightenment. And when I read that, I was deeply chagrined that he had come up with that name before I could into it. So anyway, I read the book, I loved it. Spiritual writing for worldly people, that's what his trip is. And it's exactly what I wanted to be about. So since that time, we've become friends. I edit a Psychology Today blog. I did final edits for a book coming out in July called Writing to Awaken. And when I sent him the chapter I just read to you, his email came back with these words: excellent, tight as a drum, beautiful sentences. I trust you know this is the first chapter of your next book. And yes, I do know that. So number 5 on my list is find your tribe. Use your intuition to do what you need to do to bring those people. So amongst all the great friends I've made in Vancouver, this alliance has been life-enhancing and career-shaping for sure. So that's as holistic an explanation of my creative process as I can give you, but I want to leave you with this quote by Ray Bradbury as a way to sum up what I hope I imparted. Don't think. Thinking is the enemy of creativity. It's self-conscious, and anything self-conscious is lousy. You can't try to do things, you simply must do things. Thanks. Okay, so now
Perfect. Any questions for Rena? Comments or questions?
Have you written chapter 2?
Yeah, everyone wants to know that. Yeah, actually, I am part of a writers group called Ink Tank, and I'm using that workshopping group specifically for this new memoir. So every 2 weeks, I have to produce a new chapter.
Okay, good.
And I just workshop chapter 3.
Ah, okay.
So-
Well, I'm curious, I mean.
Yeah.
You do a great job of engaging the reader or listener's interest. You know, we want to know what happens next.
Good. Yeah, even men want to know. That's a good thing. Not just women my age, which are the people in this world that buy books. So anyway, Lilia, yeah.
You were so good, clear, easy to follow. We kind of entered your world. Was interested in the people, and I like the spiritual dimension. But I'm, interested also. Like, do you have a schedule? I know you look at your emotions as your children, and you don't let them rule your life. But like, in spite of how you feel or what else happens, do you sit at a desk or whatever and do your work regularly?
Yeah, every single day is made up of doing exactly what I want when I want. I'm very fortunate in that way right now. I'm not doing client work, I'm just doing my own work for a while. And, as much as I don't want those children to rule my world, yeah, they do.
They do.
They do. So in the morning, basically, I try to get up by 6:30 and be sitting in my writing chair by 9. With my emails done, my practice takes an hour and a half, breakfast over. I can still be in my nightgown like that. I allow myself, unless I'm having company, and then it better be a cute nightgown. But I work from 9 until noon, and then I have lunch, and then I work maybe another hour, but it's usually diddly stuff and Facebook and playing, and then 3 days a week I go swimming. And the other days I try to work all afternoon. But it's every day is a little bit different, Yeah.
You take vacations, you take time out from your regular routine.
Not a whole lot. I did go to Victoria recently for a week, but even there, what I was doing is I had a chapter written. I had a good first draft of a chapter, and every day, even if we were in the middle of something, I would take an hour and go through it again. Every day, go through it again. Just an hour, but I like to turn in clean copy to this writing group. I mean, my goal is to have no comments from anybody. Now that's really ballsy to try to get to that point. Yeah, well, it's what happens is the 3 comments or the 4 comments I got are good ones, because they've really dug deep to find something that pulls them out of the story, something that's not clear, something that could be worded a little bit differently. So I want to make them work to find something that's wrong, so I do try to give them the cleanest copy possible. It makes it easier for me, because when I do my revision, sometimes I revise these things, it takes me 30 minutes, and then I can put it away and move to the next one.
I have a question about your editing. Like, it's a very, very polished piece. And I'm wondering because it's like Killing Our Darlings, right? And I have trouble doing it. I'm wondering how you edit, or what you intuitively know to edit out. What do you cross out?
Yeah, okay, this piece, which I did very boldly enter into the CBC Nonfiction Prize. You'll see. That went through 8 drafts, serious drafts. And I had first readers. I used to belong to another writing group, and I'm still, girlfriends with all those girlfriends. And so there's people that I send it to and say, hey, you got a minute? People that I know are going to be pretty rough with it and with me, and then I'll take those comments and do a cleanup and send it out to a couple more people. That one got a lot of look-see. Yeah, a lot more than the workshopping, just because it was the first chapter. So that went through definitely 8 drafts. And I really wanted the metaphors of the watery world, of the pool, because this might be the only scene that's set in that swimming pool. So I wanted to layer in those metaphors and make it stronger writing. because of the setting, the emotional setting. But yeah, you just gotta get ruthless with yourself, you know. That's when you have that outtakes. You have that little document called outtakes, and you put all your little darlings there, thinking you're gonna go back and look at them, which you never do, right? Anything else?
Yeah, that was so nicely done.
Oh, thank
Very,
you.
really engages me.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, well, I appreciate it, everybody.
Great, thank you very much, Rena.